You're welcome back to Business Incorporated on Channels Television, where surveys from Kenya, Ethiopia, and Uganda show that over 71% of citizens think that it is fair to tax the rich more to fund programs that benefit people living in poverty. If East African governments increase their tax revenues by just 1% of their GDP, they would raise an additional $4.9 billion each year for the next 5 years. Is this a possibility? Could it be implemented? And what would this mean, especially to the funding of healthcare and health infrastructure? We have Matt Kindiger speaking to this possibility here now. Matt is joining us from the UK. Hi, Matt. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the program today.
I guess I should ask first, are you part of the rich even though you're not in Africa?
Oh, I don't know. It really depends on your own context, I suppose.
The definition of the rich.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so how likely are tax hikes how likely are we to see it over the coming years?
So increasingly likely, including on higher income individuals and households in Africa. What we have seen over the last year, over the last 2 years, is that governments in Africa have benefited from high commodity prices globally. We have seen South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya all benefit from these high global commodity prices, which have supported fiscal revenues. And as a result, they have delayed increases to taxes. But in our view here at Frontier View, we don't see high commodity prices lasting long enough or remaining high enough for a long period of time to compensate for the fact that government finances really are in quite a bad state across Africa. So what we do expect to see is governments aiming to broaden their tax revenue bases over the coming months, over the coming year or so. What this will probably look like is instead of very aggressive tax hikes immediately, is first the tightening of tax collection measures. So businesses, higher income households will probably see governments coming after them a bit more aggressively, being a lot stricter with the tax collection. After that, we'll probably see things like import taxes, import duties, and corporation and higher income consumer, corporation taxes and taxes on higher income consumers rising after that. So a bit of a delay to tax increases, but they are probably inevitable and they probably will increase over a period of time.
Well, I can tell you in Nigeria that the government has become even more aggressive when it comes to tax collection. But what does this tell us about the state of public finances across the continent?
So certainly what it does say is that public finances are not great, and in many cases we have seen deteriorating public finances across the continent. So public finances were not great also before COVID-19. It's always worth remembering this, that things were starting to look a bit tight for many African governments, but COVID-19 really blew apart fiscal projections that governments had. Remember that we had the world's first COVID-related default in Zambia last year. Angola flirted with default as well, narrowly missed default in 2021. And a couple of weeks ago, we saw Ghana's credit rating downgrade, which sort of sent a signal that things were not as good as we thought they were from a fiscal position there. Although most governments were able to avoid a crisis in 2021, partly thanks to IMF support, but also because of high commodity prices, we now see fiscal pressures really coming to a head in 2022, and this is the year when government will be faced to address these fiscal pressures for both 2022, but also to ensure that they retain longer-term credibility with investors. So short-term issues around COVID have worsened things, but we certainly expect public finances to remain under pressure over the next year or so.
And looking at your crystal ball now, which of the countries do you expect to be like the first to raise taxes this year?
Yeah, certainly it's a good question because it's not going to be even across the board. We don't expect every market to raise taxes at the same time and on the same, will raise the same taxes at the same time. We are closely monitoring government budgets over the course of the next few months. South Africa has its budget speech next month. The government was actually able to delay the raising of taxes from late 2021, but we now expect the budget speech, probably October, November this year, to see the first tax increases. So South Africa will probably be one of the later countries to raise taxes. But countries like Kenya and Ghana are expected to raise taxes slightly earlier, and this is because the fiscal pressures in these markets are much more acute. So we could see tax increases, even before Kenya's election, but they probably would be very targeted on higher income households and also companies, and they probably wouldn't affect lower income consumers. Nigeria, a very interesting case, although, as you've mentioned, the government is becoming increasingly strict with tax collection. It has received or benefited from a bit of breathing space as a result of higher oil prices globally. So this has provided a bit of extra funding or fiscal receipts for the government, but it is inevitable that tax collection measures will tighten probably from the second half of the year. Overall, most other African governments are likely to raise taxes as well. So those are a few highlights, but the general trend is pretty much across the board tax increases in 2022.
All right, Matt, thank you. I just knew Nigeria would have to be in that list. So thank you so much, Matt Kindiger, practice leader at Sub-Saharan Africa Front of View. Thank you so much for your thoughts with us.
Thanks very much.